when we click on it, it's going to run. And what we can do is at this point, if you look at your board, you will see the red LED turning on and off. One of the things we can do is hit the pause. We should actually go over here and hit this one here, which is our reset. So we're going to reset everything. And then we're going to say step over. And at this point, if you look at your board, you're going to see the red LED is on. If we click on the step over again, it's going to wait 500 milliseconds. And if we click again, it's now going to say red underscore LED equals 1, which turns it off, and so forth. So you can see that it's going through this code, and you can stop it at any point, trace through. But one other thing that's kind of interesting is if you actually do it a step into, then you're going to start going down through what's called the hardware abstraction layer. And we're not going to spend any real amount of time on this, but if you go down, every time you go down another level, and if you want to come back, you can click on the step return, and we get back to this level here. But this is an indication of what the hardware abstraction layer does. It's very easy to work at the upper level, but it has to deal with all the registers and so on below here, which we're not going to really bother with. Now, once we've finished debugging this and looking at it, what we want to do is we want to first of all hit the red button to shut off all debugging and so forth. And sometimes you might get lost in here if you hit the wrong button. So we could hit Window, we can hit Perspective, we can have Reset Perspective back to the default, and when we do, then we can find our way out of this labyrinth of stuff. We can close this down here, and we can right mouse click and say delete to get rid of it, because if we want to bring something else in, we want to delete what we've got here. We're going to click on delete project contents on disk and say OK. And we also want to get rid of this copy expanded thing. So we're just going to click here, right mouse click, and we're going to say delete again. And again, we're going to say delete contents on disk. So when we want to bring something else in, we can say File, Import. Under General, we're going to say Projects from Folder or Archive. We're going to say Next. We're going to say Archive. And this time, instead of having a blinking LED, we're going to have blinking LEDs. So let's double click on this. And we're going to say Finish. And again, what we're going to do is we're just going to open this up here. We're going to say blinking LEDs, the .cpp file, whatever it is, and we'll wait for it to populate here. Then all we have to do is just hit this little blue guy, and it's going to start our process going. So again, we're going to use the MCUXPresso SimSysDAP, and we're going to say OK. It's built it. Now it's about to download, and you're going to see the red LED go out, which it just did because it's downloading. And at this point, you're going to see that there's a white light shining there. So let's see what happens when we do a step over. The white light turns into cyan color. When we do LED 1 equals 1, then it's going to be a darker blue. Then if we click on it again, it goes completely out. And if we run it from this point, we're going to see that we do have our flashing red LED again. But we can change these to any LED so we want. Quite simply, let's just pause. Let's go back to our CPP by double clicking here. Instead of LED 1 this time, let's make this LED 2 by just commenting this out and commenting this in. Now let's go through the whole process again by hitting the blue debug. And this time it's going to ask us to double click. It's going to ask us this twice, which is fine. And the problem that it ran into here was because it's still running the debugger. What we have to do is hit the little red square here to kill the process that was going on before, and then we can hit the little blue bug and everything should run fine. And again, it's going to ask us again, and ask us again, and this time it's going to go. And we're just going to say OK. And again, our red LED goes out, and now it is white again. Now what I've done is I've hit the little red square to kill the last process, and what I've done is I've changed around the order of these, and I've uncommented the lead 2 here and here and commented the other ones back in. So what I'm going to do at this point, we're just going to hit the blue button and let it do the rest. And at this point, because we've launched it before, it's going to ask us twice to do this. You'll see this. And it's going to ask us again, and then it's just going to go. And it's going to ask us, is this the resources to save? Because we've changed them. At this point, you're going to see the light on the Freedom K64 go out again. And let's see how this is going to be different. Again, it's turning white. And what we're going to do is we're going to step over. Notice it turned purple this time. From white to purple, then to blue, and then it shut off. And I wonder which LED this is. Well, we can just run it at this point, and we can see that it's a flashing green LED. Now on your lab quiz, what you're going to find is you're going to, for lab 3, is it's going to have this kind of setup here, where you're going to have to step through this to see the colors change from white to other colors. And there's going to be different versions of this, and that's what you're going to have to do for your lab test to make sure that this is working properly. If you want to reset this again, you can hit the little reset button, which is this guy, and then you can see that we have our white LED again. And again, if you didn't get them quick enough, you can say step over. You can see it's turned purple. Step over again, it's blue, and step over and it's out. Now when you take a look here, this is test.cpp, which has this code, and if you look at this project, it has exactly the same code. The only difference here is that this one here has an embed library that says documentation not ready. This one here has one that says classes and can be further expanded out this way. Now this is a clone of this one. It's a blinking LED copy here. And this one here is great if you want to run it locally on embed. You can just double click here. You can hit compile, and it's going to work when you download it to the board, no problem. But the library that you've got here will not work when you export it to MCUXPresso. So you have to add this other library, which is different, to this to actually do an export. So this is for local, this is for exporting it so it works there. Now if you do right mouse click and say export program, it's very easy. You just have to go here and go down here to where it says MCUXPresso and say export. And when it says save file, you say OK. And what it's done is it's put it in the downloads directory here to be grabbed by MCUXPresso. So that's how you create them. In the exercise that you're going to have before Lab 3, you're going to have both of these files sent to you. This one, for this purpose, is going to MCUXPresso. This one here is going to be used for local running. Now there's a problem when you go from MCUXPresso back to Embed and you want to download programs. If you do, what you're going to have to do is disconnect and reconnect, because sometimes when you grab this and slide it down to DAP-Link, it's going to give you an error message. And if that happens, just disconnect the cable, put it back in, and try again.